Welcome to Hyde Talk. I'm your host, Crystal Peltzer. Hyde Talk is an open, honest conversation about leadership, character, education, and parenting. Today's guest is Hyde's outdoor education leader, Megan-Mack Nicholson. Welcome, Megan-Mack.
Thank you.
So let's start by talking about what is outdoor education? Why?
Well, outdoor education is exactly how it sounds. It's education that happens outdoors, but the way that it happens can be a specific actual academic subject, or it could be just having an experience with others outside or alone.
So what's its impact on teen development? Why would we care?
So we care very much about outdoor education, and we can go back to the 1900s. What we've noticed since COVID is that many students came back after not being in school with high levels of anxiety and depression, and just their ability to focus was very, very low. And if we look back in history in the 1900s, when tuberculosis was, unchecked, raged and unchecked, the kids were mostly affected by that. Two doctors in Rhode Island decided that they would do an experiment and host what they called fresh air classes. So they brought all their students outside, and that year not one student got sick. And so 2 years after that, there were 65 fresh air classes within the United States and hundreds around the world. And this really changed how we thought about education and the benefits of keeping the education and the subject matter that we have, but enhancing it for health purposes outside. So the benefits of outdoor education for the student have a wide range. So it can be not just the typical mental and physical health that we pretty much know about, but also emotional development, social development, motivation, concentration, being able to be more connected to their place of origin, and being able to connect and communicate with each other.
Well, that makes perfect sense, because I know if I'm really stressed at work, if I go home, if I force myself to go out and take a walk even, I'm in a much better and different headspace. So I can really see how that could benefit kids, especially with technology today. So tell us how you got involved in outdoor education. Was this something that you always knew you wanted to do? Is this where you started your career? How did this all come about?
Wow, that's a great question. I think that I knew that I always wanted to be a teacher, but there wasn't one subject that I excelled in. So it's like this voice in my head, or my inner knowing, that I was going to be a teacher, but I didn't know what that looked like. So my third year of college, I dropped out, and I hadn't declared a major yet, and I was just a little lost. And so I traveled around Europe and then moved out west, and got a job working for a backcountry crew. So a backcountry crew is one that kind of helps build bridges and turnpikes and things like that. So I am 19 at the time, and I have 10 students with me, AmeriCorps students, who I have to totally camp in the outdoors for 8 weeks and teach them about environmental education at night. So we work during the day and we teach at night, and I just fell in love. Like, I can still feel that summer in my bones. And I knew exactly what I wanted to do for the rest of my life, like figure out how to do this, like be in nature, teaching kids, watching them build and grow together, their confidence grow, laughing with them, cooking with them, just everything about it was exactly what I wanted to do. I went back to school. I majored in international relations. And when I was done, I immediately started working for a wilderness school. So I was like in the woods for 30 days, out for 30 days, in for 30 days. And then I felt like I really wanted an educational background, like a formal education. So I went and got my master's in environmental education and outdoor leadership. And because I had had so much experience before, I didn't have to do like an internship or anything like that. So I graduated pretty quickly and started teaching for Cornell and Ithaca College and Binghamton University. I loved higher education. But I have to say, working with higher education, they come to you and they're so easy. They're eager and they're ready and they just want to have all the information, and you're like, it's easy. And I kind of missed the challenge, I missed the challenge of the students, the high school student who is still discovering themselves and still not sure what they're into. It's almost like you get more diversity because they're doing your program because it's part of their academic, ladder or experience. And so I got sidetracked and I got hired to run a ropes course, design and run a ropes course at a ski resort in upstate New York. And before you knew it, I just kept moving up the recreation ladder. And before you knew it, I was running recreation for the ski resort. And I had a cool job, but I was a little miserable. And I went to get my woofer certification in New Hampshire, and I met the director of the outdoor program here at Hyde. I'm from Maine, love Maine, have been trying to get back to Maine for years, and found out about this character development school with this amazing North Campus up in northern Maine, and just started hearing about what Hyde was all about. And I was so moved. When I was done, I immediately came back and emailed the school and was like, so if you have any positions open, even though I had a wonderful life in upstate New York, it's like I knew where I wanted to be. And I did that for almost 9 years until a position opened up. And when it did, it was just, kind of walk right in, but I knew I was coming home. So it's great to be here.
But what schools are doing this? Is there a nationwide movement? Is this something in Maine? Who's doing this?
So to go back to like that feel-good feeling that you have, when you're outside, remembering that we have two nervous systems going on in our body. We have the sympathetic nervous system that's kind of reacting to the world around us, and we have the parasympathetic nervous system that's our rest and restoration. And even when we're concentrating on academic studies outside or working together outside, just by being in nature, that parasympathetic nervous system is engaged. So we can more easily take in information because we're not reacting to the information, if that makes sense. And what we noticed with the fresh air classes, those just kind of like went away for no real reason. They just kind of dissipated through the years. And with our recent COVID-19 outbreak, what we noticed again was when students came back into classes, they were really struggling with anxiety, depression, even being able to socially engage. And so I think 4 leaders of our top environmental groups in the United States came together, and they actually came up with the initiative, the COVID-19 Outdoor Learning Initiative for the United States. And so they've been really pushing and putting hundreds of millions of dollars into outdoor education in the last couple of years. Even here in the state of Maine, the MOLI grant, Maine Outdoor Learning Initiative, was given $6.6 million for classes and schools throughout the state of Maine to use specifically for outdoor education.
Great. So it really is a nationwide thing, but Maine also specifically has put some resources toward this.
Absolutely.
What does Hyde School do on the Bath campus to initiate some of these outdoor learning experiences?
So we are really lucky to have a part of our character education be based on that outdoor learning skill and environment. And so from day one, we have always had what a lot of people call our challenge courses, or team building activities or initiatives that bring the students outside to work with each other, either problem solving or to investigate nature. We have 40 acres right around here that have been used through the years to help enhance academic studies and social interaction.
So whether we're on campus here in Bath and our ropes course, which I do want to ask you about in a second, how do you ensure that these experiences are safe but are also challenging the students that are there?
Oh, that's a great question. So let's start with the challenging part. we have an understanding with the students of challenge by choice. And challenge by choice means that you're not opting out of the challenge, but you get to decide what your challenge looks like as you participate. So it's our role, the faculty's role, the facilitator's role, to make sure that we're asking these students to not do anything that's outside of that challenge zone, so that they feel like, it would be unsafe for them. So always building upon our knowledge, just like if we're in a math class, we're not going to ask somebody who's in Algebra 1 to do calculus, right? Building upon what the students are comfortable with, but always asking them to be challenged. And they already know that going in. Our challenge course is called a challenge course for a reason. And that doesn't mean that you need to be up in the air 50 feet. Some students choose to do that. But the low ropes course is also part of the challenge course. And the challenge is, am I going to be a leader today? Am I going to support in a way that I'm not used to supporting? Could that support be not being the loud piece in the circle and being more of a quiet piece in the circle, right? So establishing in the beginning, whether it's down here on campus or up north, that challenge by choice. And then our job to keep it safe. So I've been running challenge courses for a couple decades now. I was doing that before I came here, so I feel very comfortable out there. Even though I feel comfortable out there, every 3 years I get my certification to renew to make sure that I can still climb and rescue and do all those things. Those challenge courses are so incredibly safe. If we follow keeping our certifications current, there should be no issue. Even if someone needs to be, quote unquote, rescued from the course, it's seamless, totally seamless. The same thing when you're out there, up at our North Campus, making sure that all of our staff as in the North Campus staff, has their woofer or a WUFA, and that's a Wilderness First Responder, and that's an 8-day course that needs to get renewed every 3 years. So making sure that we have proper first aid while we're out there and understand how to be in the elements and keep the students safe in the elements.
So you've mentioned a little bit right now the ropes course that's actually on the Bath campus here. We were just out on it together a couple of weeks ago. So talk to us more about that.
Well, our ropes course is very exciting. I've been to numerous ropes courses, and one of the interesting things about our ropes course is we have a statically belayed course. Not all of it is. So there are two types of belay systems. There's a dynamically belayed system, which means there's someone keeping a climber safe, and as they climb, the rope, gets pulled through the belayer, right? So that's a dynamic system. So the climber's climbing, they get to do one element, and then they come back down. With a statically belayed course, the tethers on top of the course kind of move with you. So not only do you do one element, you can do 4 or 5 elements. So that's really exciting. So you can be up in the air for much longer, but you can also use it dynamically, if that makes sense. So it just gives like a 4-year student much more variety. Even if they're doing the ropes course every year, it'll look different. So we're very fortunate to have such a diverse course.
And so those static elements, those would be the ones that you sort of clip in, and then you do an element, and then you clip out, and you're really up there all alone.
Yes.
And so you sort of mentioned before kind of being rescued, which sounds scary maybe to some people, but what does that look like? Because I've seen one happen, and it's probably very terrifying for the person up there. But how do you rescue someone that's panicking and stuck on one of those upper elements?
So there are 3 steps to rescue. First rescue is verbal rescue. The second rescue is an assist, and the third rescue is a lower. right? So if we have somebody who's really panicking, really calming them down, going out to them. So yes, they are doing the course on their own, but on each platform, you'll have a facilitator. You'll have somebody who can clip in as well and go out to you and be with you, not just someone screaming at you from the ground like, you can do it, which often works, but someone who can really be right there with you. You want to help bring down their breathing, and bring their focus to you, right? So a verbal assist is just that, talking them through where they are, reminding them that they're safe, reminding them that other people have gone before them. So like it's a safe, they have seen people do this safely. An assist is where you actually take some weight off them or you clip in with them and you finish the element. So I'm clipping in to Susie because she doesn't feel like she can do it. She can put some of her weight on me, or I can take some weight off her with the tether, and then we do the element together. The third rescue is a lower, and that's a little trickier, but I've done it for years, and so now it's kind of fun for me, but I got to remember, even though it's fun for me, it's very scary for the participant. But you actually go out to them and you take them off of the equipment and the system that they're on, and you lower them back down on a new system. So you're going out there, setting them up with a new system, taking them off the old system, and then lowering them down to the ground. And then it's really important after that to have a follow-up, to have a debrief and a discussion about that, because that can be very jarring. And in the ideal situation, you don't have to do a lower, because you're only wanting those students up there who can be successful.
And there's such an analogy here as you're talking. I'm thinking about, yes, you're on the ropes course, but you have support at every platform. You have someone talking you through that relates so much to sort of the challenge and support that we do, not even in an outdoor environment here at Hyde. What other types of connections do you see between this outdoor education and other things that all schools do, or things that Hyde does?
Well, I think we're just so lucky to be at Hyde because we model in the classroom and throughout our days exactly what it means to build one's character in a supportive environment. And for me, coming to this campus, I couldn't imagine a better fit, because it's not just focused on these are the skills you're going to learn on the ropes course, or these are the skills that you're going to learn coming to my program for 21 days, and then you're going to disappear and go away, right? So we are in that community. So we're not having to send our students out for these kind of experiences, which a lot of other schools do. We have it right in-house. And not only that, it's in complete alignment with our character development. Being able to show concern and courage and have integrity. All of these things are the core of outdoor education, the core of challenge courses. So it's foundational in how we work our education at Hyde. I couldn't imagine, not having those things, right? It's because it's so in alignment with what we are trying to instill in these students.
But we also have a North Campus up in Eustis, Maine. Yes. Very beautiful. I know you're excited to talk about that. So what type of outdoor learning opportunities do students have at our North Campus?
So our outdoor campus that we acquired in 1996 is roughly about a square mile of property right on the shores of the Bigelow Preserve. So, God's country in the state of Maine, like everybody wants to be in this area. And we are lucky enough to have 6 different campgrounds around the property right on the shore of Flagstaff Lake. We have 3 yurts, 3 that we call our winter yurts, 3 that are at our main yurts. We have a main lodge. We have a whole workshop. And so programming up there can be very diverse and fluid depending on what type of group we have up there. So we can have literally anywhere from 1 student up there at a time to half the school. So years past, we have had orientation where the students come, and right off the bat, as soon as they hit campus, they get together in their discovery groups, and they camp for 3 or 4 days and learn about each other and what it means to be in that discovery group family.
So how do outdoor experiences like hiking or climbing a mountain or even camping for some students who have never done that before, how does that sort of play into character building or academic?
I love it. So in my mind, like it's the core of character building, or it can be a core of character building. And we can go back to the beginning of Outward Bound, which one of the reasons that we have this piece of land is because the donor really believed and our founder really believed in the Outward Bound model, which is a character building model that all happens on outdoor expeditions of some sort. So they were hoping to use our property to have the same benefit. And just so you know, the background of Outward Bound is the founder of Outward Bound noticed that on the battlefields in World War II, that young soldiers were falling prey to injury and mental illness more than the older soldiers. And so he was thinking, if we could take these kids, these young adults, and bring them into the woods and teach them outdoor skills, it would give them kind of like a shot in the arm of life, you know, like a very compacted moment in time where they go through decision making and challenges to kind of leave after 21 days with what someone would endure in like 10 or 15 days, if that makes sense. But what we saw was on the outset was this was very, very, very successful for these soldiers to be able to keep, you know, sane mind and body while they're out there and keep calm and cool and collected. And so the model came over to the United States. So it actually started in Europe and came over to the United States. And Outward Bound is very successful and all over the world now. And it does just that, you know, just what we can do up north at the campus, where we can teach people canoeing and hiking and camping in the rain and camping in winter, because it kind of puts us up in that place of challenge, that place of decision-making, that place of personal caretaking, by making those decisions every day of every moment to stay safe and warm and happy, and also realize how much fun you're having by that constant personal interaction and care of each other and self. Just helps with all of the character development, you know, as you move forward. So even if it's a day hike, we haven't done as many long expeditions anymore, but even a day hike can be really rewarding with someone's confidence building and their bonding together as a group.
Yeah, and they prove to themselves that they can do hard things. I think I've seen that in my own children, and certainly in the kids that I teach. And so more and more we're having to, you can do hard things. And that's something that I've seen from this outdoor programming, which I really appreciate. So, but what are some of those typical challenges that most of the students face when they're out there? And not challenges like, I don't know how to put a tent together, but challenges like mental challenges, emotional challenges, self-doubt.
Yeah. Well, I think the first challenge in today's day and age is putting that phone away. The challenge of, you know, what that feels like to be off screen and to know that you're going into a day, 2 days, 3 days without the screen is very intimidating. And we have to acknowledge that because that is their security in many ways. When they're in any moment of unease, they will take out their phone to create ease. Whether it does or not, we can talk about that later. But I think that's like the first big challenge. But as you move forward, you know, it's cooking for yourself. It's trusting somebody else to cook for you who's not, you know, our amazing cook in our cafeteria. You know, it's knowing how to stay dry. Like just the challenge, I actually hope every time that we go out that there's some rain, you know, because it just seems like you can't withstand. If you ever go to a park on a weekend or anytime and it starts to rain, it just sit there for a moment, right?
Everyone
and watch
scatters.
everybody just scatter.
Yeah.
Like
We melt, right?
Yeah, like they're
Yeah.
gonna melt or it's burning them or something. And for students to actually be in the rain, whether it's an hour or all day, and then afterwards to have them, you know, even if they're complaining when it's happening or they're not used to this, just watching how they begin to interact, how they take care of each other, how they set up tarps, how they stay dry, how before you know it, it's not a big deal. And
that also, like, sorry to cut you
No,
off,
it's
but
okay.
that segues back into the phone thing, right? So a lot of these kids, their only connection through COVID was through a computer or a phone. And now that's their go-to method of communicating and connecting with folks. So if they're outside kind of going through the same things together, you know, what does that shift look like? How long does that shift take before you start seeing the kids, they stop chewing their fingernails because they don't have a phone, but then they actually start talking to each other and connecting in a different way? How long does that take?
Hours, like literally. So it takes about 2.5 hours to get up north. And I would say we have them leave their phones on campus, and before they're up there, they're talking, they're laughing, they're interacting. It's kind of amazing how quickly they remember. They remember what it was like to be with each other without them. It's just hard not, you know, I don't blame them for having this thing that can just help them anytime they're uncomfortable to make them feel comfortable. But it doesn't take long for them to switch back into meaningful dialogue and conversation and fun and laughter. And then when you get there and they're up against those challenges that have like the perceived risk around them, you know, they can enter them fully, if that makes sense, right? People who are scared of water, you know, people who don't think they can climb a mountain, students who don't think that they can share a tent with somebody else in ways where they're just feeling not a part of a group, and being able to be welcomed and no one left behind as we move.
So are there any specific success stories that you can think about, whether at Hyde or in your career outside of Hyde, in terms of, because I know you've done a lot of things, you're very passionate about this, that definitely translates to the kids, but do you have any stories of students who just made tremendous growth and what that looked like and kind of maybe where the kid is now or how they see themselves now?
Yes, and I would say I have so many examples. It's a little hard. You know, I've been doing this for 30 years now, and I think the reason that I keep doing it is I keep seeing the growth and the success. I like to say that I'm a farmer, you know, and I'm just planting seeds, and sometimes they grow and they germinate right away, and sometimes they sit in the ground for a while, and I view that as a lot of the Hyde process. But since I've been at Hyde now 7 years, I've already witnessed some students who are, you know, barely hanging on because they lacked the self-confidence, hanging on because they lacked the focus and belief in themselves to even get to the next step. And through programs at the North Campus, I have seen them gain confidence. I've seen them gain humility and be able to actually hold a mirror up to themselves. You know, so a student that gets there as a freshman, and I can think of one in particular, you know, shows up as a freshman, has no idea what's going on in terms of being up at the North Campus, you know, not connecting with other students in their own world, confidence is low. And then seeing them again at orientation, you know, they've been up there before and now they know how things work and they're helping out new students. And then seeing them up there again on maybe a leadership trip or a ski trip and watching how they're stepping into their confidence And, this is Hyde, so we always sit down and have, deep conversations about where we are in life, and hearing over and over again what that program has done for them. The time away from campus sometimes is so important. And then to read about where they go after programming. One instance that I really remember recently is a year and a half ago, I got a letter from that student that I'm talking about. And they had written specifically that the North Campus programming not only helped them graduate from college, which they never thought that they'd be capable of doing, but that they were also marrying someone of a caliber that they never expected or believed that they deserved. And that's kind of what it's all about, right?
Yeah. So you mentioned earlier academic, and we've talked about hiking, swimming, camping, all that. I've done all of that.
Yeah.
How are we going to bring sort of core academic classes or the more traditional education and academic portion of schooling? How are we going to incorporate that into outdoor ed?
So we're really excited this year to kind of switch again, always developing how we change the programming up there. Switching it up to look more like the MOLI grant, the idea of the Maine Outdoor Learning Initiative. And what I've noticed as I'm looking at other schools across the state of Maine, one of the things that they're doing are they're taking their actual subjects and bringing them outside. And what better way to do that than, with a huge property up north where people can really interact with their subject matter. So this year we are entering into a phase of academic intensives, which we're really excited about. We're focusing on the arts, history, English, biology, environmental science, to bring the students up north for a 2.5-day kind of academic retreat where they are delving in deeply into their subject matter and using the land and what it has to offer. Thinking about the history of what that land has to offer is amazing, or the environmental science that we can see happening wherever they walk. And it also gives a long, intensive time for that subject matter. So, something that's tricky for the students to take grasp or hold of conceptually, in 45 minutes, you can have, 2 days, or a project, an art project, or a movie that the kids are putting together to really get their hands involved and on a deeper level. So we're excited about those.
I think my favorite part in thinking about these academic intensives is, in my experience, students think that math takes place just in the math classroom. And when you walk out of the math classroom, you don't do math anymore. And then you walk into the English classroom, and they come in and they're like, I teach biology. This is biology. Why are we doing math? And so to see the interconnectedness and to maybe place history, make it feel more real, I think that's really exciting. And so hopefully the kids are excited about that too.
Yeah, it's like a holistic outdoor education mashup, right? So you don't necessarily have to be on one subject matter while you're up there on one subject matter, right? You're just learning about everything as you move forward. And it's so good for the Hyde character model, right? So they're still working as a group. They're still figuring things out. And learning how to interact. One of the benefits of outdoor education is that it really brings light to those students who learn in a different way. So we have different models for teaching and avenues for learning.
Awesome. So talk to us about the future. What are your hopes and goals, and what do you see in the future for outdoor education for Hyde, but also maybe in the state of Maine and even beyond?
Well, I think it's becoming a real trend for most schools now to have a strong outdoor program. Every boarding school that I know of in the state of Maine has a very strong outdoor either club or group or orientation or program. They all look very different. And I think supporting the variety of programming that could happen up at the North Campus is important, because I think it kind of has the ability to speak to a lot of different students in a lot of different ways and serve their individual needs and the group needs, the school needs. And what I would love to see is that, you know, we put so much of a focus on outdoor education that we have the facility up there to build the program. So it would be great to see such an emphasis and such success as we take baby steps with these academic intensives.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your experiences and your passion with us today. It's been a pleasure to have you, Megan-Mack.
Thanks.
You've been watching Hyde Talk, and I'm Crystal Peltzer. Thank you for joining us today, and be sure to check out our other podcasts on your preferred social media platform. We'll see you next time.